Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for another Mock Draft Monday. This is the third time I'm recording this video, so that's obnoxious, so I'm going to keep checking the volume to make sure that it keeps recording, because it kept cutting out of my previous two videos, and now I hate re-recording videos because you think that you've said something, so then you don't talk about it, but then you realize you didn't say it yet in that video. So we'll see how this one turns out. But I do want to let you know that there are links in the description to my top 90 plus rankings, my big board. You can also find links to my website where my big mock drafts are stored, my 1.0, my 2.0. Those 2.0 recently came out. Thank you very much. That video was more successful than others, so I always appreciate that. And you can find a link to the Discord channel where you can find all of my strengths, weaknesses, write-ups, notes, etc. on each player that I've scouted, and those lists will continue to be updated for the coming weeks up until the draft, up until draft morning probably. And you can also find the combine data. They're nice and sorted, easily sortable, etc. for you as well up on the Discord channel. I was foolish enough to try to compete with the NCAA tournament first opening night, too, of all days, last Thursday by releasing my top 10 offensive tackle rankings that evening. That was a bad idea, so I'm going to be releasing my linebacker video tomorrow night on a Wednesday when the tournament will not be going. So check out the linebacker video. Go back, check out the offensive tackle video if you have any interest in that. I've also done the running backs and the interior defensive line. Also links in the description to those. With all that out of the way, let's get into this mock draft because I'd actually like this video to be shorter than the previous two times I recorded as well. We'll see how I do with that. But on this mock draft, we're going to start out real simple, nothing too crazy. Tennessee fans, I do go into the second round in this mock draft. I will be going into 9 picks deep because I'm going to have like 3 teams trading out of the first round into the second round. So we want to get every team covered. So just a heads up on that. If your team does happen to trade out of the first round, you're still going to get covered in this video with a draft pick towards the end of the video. But you know, these other teams here do get, a few of them at least, do get 2 picks then because of that. So you can look forward to that, but we are going to go with Cam Ward to Tennessee. That appears to be what will happen unless they trade out of this first, pick here. And for pick 2, I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders on this one. I still stand by that, my ultimate belief, I've said this, is that the New York Giants end up with Shedeur Sanders one way or the other, whether that means that he falls or that he stays here. I don't know. I've looked at both scenarios before. I'll look at both of them again, I'm sure. In this case, we're going to have the New York Giants plans fall apart, except this time they're smart enough. So they've been here, they've been there before where they came to the dance without a partner and they left without a partner. And it doesn't feel good, and now they're in the situation where they're the most desperate team in all of the NFL in terms of the quarterback situation, and now they're once again looking at walking out of the dance without a dance partner. But they've got a plan B, okay? There's always got to be a plan B with your dance partners. And the New York Giants thought about this, and pre-draft, they have had conversations with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So here is my thoughts going into this pick number 3 here and going into making this draft, this trade happen. First of all, we, the New York Giants, want Abdul Carter, but we don't want that much investment in our edge room, and we plan on moving on from Kayvon Thibodeaux anyways, so what's wrong with getting rid of him a year earlier to make room for Abdul Carter in here? We want to ensure that we get our quarterback target by moving our second round pick up into the first round. So that's our second goal. And, well, that's our goal. And then we figure in terms of the value here of Kayvon Thibodeaux, probably has a value of roughly like a third round draft pick. So that's what we're going to keep in mind here. So this is what the New York Giants are going to come to the table with to Tampa Bay. They're going to say, hey, we'll give you pick 34 and Kayvon Thibodeaux for pick 19. And very well, this is on the borderline of being enough value. It is possible that Tampa Bay Buccaneers would say, hey, first of all, we know that you're kind of desperate, so we're going to come back, we're going to counter this. We're going to ask for anywhere from a future third to a future fifth on top of this to really make this a more fair trade. That's possible. We'll just meet right in the middle here, ask for a future fourth. We'll make that happen. New York Giants are desperate, in fact, and we'll make that happen. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers, remember, you're getting Kayvon Thibodeaux. I'll remind you again later. And here, that opens up the door to draft Abdul Carter, who maybe we feel is the best player in this draft, blue chip type of talent, all that good stuff. That's where we're going to pick for New England. We are going to swerve just a little bit with this pick. We're going to take Tedarrell McMillan. Thought here being, we did a decent job of helping out our defense in the offseason. We got some cornerbacks and everything. That's not necessarily the highest list on our needs. Wide receiver is Travis Hunter, fine wide receiver, but I do have to remind you that in the offseason, Mike Vrabel did speak about the type of wide receiver that they wanted to bring in to add to this room to help Drake May out, and there's a million reasons why that may not matter, but I will say that description matches up pretty exactly with what Tedarrell McMillan is. Now, Tet, we've seen falling in drafts. I've been low on him all draft season. I do think this is a little bit high for Tedarrell McMillan myself too, but at the same time, this is what we're going for. We don't want to trade back and miss out on it. I mean, I don't hate Tedarrell McMillan given the draft that we have this year at the top of the draft. I don't necessarily hate him either going pretty high, and I really do like his fit on a lot of these teams as well in the top 12, going all the way down to Dallas, are all teams that I'll be a little bit surprised if he makes it out of there just because of the nice fit that he does add to these rooms. But we'll see what the NFL thinks of it eventually. For now, this is the scenario that we're going to do, which leaves Jacksonville very, very happy. We're going to see their second pick, but for now, they're going to take Travis Hunter. They didn't have to trade up for him, which I've done before. So that works out nicely at pick 6. That leaves Mason Graham falling down. Las Vegas would probably love to add a guy like him along that defensive line. I've gone Ashton Jeanty plenty of times. Maybe they still go Ashton Jeanty here. But I have these two basically tied in terms of the prospects. Both, I think, are still very, very, very good prospects. I might move Ashton Jeanty ahead. Right now I have Mason Graham ahead of him. But regardless, I like them both a lot, and this is just kind of pushing some of these players down a little bit. And then you got the New York Jets, and we are going to add Will Campbell. This could just as well be Armand Membo, a 50-50 flip. Just depends what the team thinks, exactly what they're looking for to add into that offensive line room as well, and what their thoughts are on each of these guys. But for the most part, I would generally just call it a 50-50 flip on which one will go first in the draft. But Jets are going to be smart and finish off this offensive line before moving forward to everything else as a franchise. So bring Carolina up on the clock. We're going to go Jalen Walker here. We've done this before. I really like bringing Jalen Walker into a team that is building, so that way you can kind of build around the strengths and weaknesses of Jalen Walker. He's a very nice, interesting prospect, chess piece type of guy, but I don't want to sit there and plop him in as an edge rusher or plop him in as a linebacker. I want to use him as a bit of a weapon, and in order to do that, I think the best case scenario in order to help make this, the chances of this to succeed would be to be building a defense a little bit around that idea, and Carolina is in a complete rebuild defensively. So that's what I like about Jalen Walker to the Carolina Panthers and what they could do with that if they're creative enough and willing to go that route. New Orleans are going to be up on the clock next, and I'm going to have them go Shamar Stewart, and this is where we're just going to touch a little bit on a conversation that I've had already, but just listened to a podcast the other day with Daniel Jeremiah talking a little bit about this class, specifically about Shamar Stewart. Was asked a question from the co-host or the host of that show about Shamar Stewart went 32nd in his most recent mock draft, and he's like, okay, so is he no longer a top 10 guy? And Daniel Jeremiah said something that I've said all this offseason, so I want to repeat it through the lips of Daniel Jeremiah here, is that this draft class, once you get past those top 5-6 players, it's really complete chaos. Anything could happen. There are varying opinions on this draft to an extreme. There's always 32 different draft boards when you come into the draft, and that's why it's so unpredictable. And you listen to every analyst out there, and every analyst, we come to these consensus opinions, but when you look at it, there are going to be definite differences in specific opinions, and this year more than ever you're going to see that even more. And a guy like Shamar Stewart could go anywhere from the first third of this draft to the final third of the draft, and you wouldn't get too much, you shouldn't, people might moan about him going in the first third. I personally would prefer him. I'd rather, if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I'd rather we didn't take him here at pick 9. I'd rather take him at the end of the first, maybe even early second. Would really like that. But look, this is a guy with a whole heck of a lot of upside, and you can't if you're a coaching staff, if you're a coach in the NFL and you have faith in yourself, then what you want is a guy with all the tools, because you know that you can turn them into a player. Of course, that doesn't always work out, but I will say, when it comes to the other intangibles, Shamar Stewart also has those going for him. So there's just a lot going for Shamar Stewart. The only thing that's not going for him is production, and that can even maybe be explained away a little bit by what Texas A&M was instructing him to do as a player. So, Shamar Stewart can go anywhere, and in this draft, a lot of these guys have very, very different and varying of opinions, and so you're going to see guys slide, you're going to see guys taken earlier than you'd expect. It's going to be a fun draft. That's what brings us on to pick 10, and we're going to go Ashton Jeanty here. Have not done this yet, because pre-free agency, if things didn't change in free agency, if Chicago had been silent in free agency, if they hadn't made any trades really leading into free agency, and their offensive line specifically was still what it was, I would not be wanting to go Ashton Jeanty here. But Chicago's got a pretty complete roster, so throw Ashton Jeanty into there. Makes a lot of sense now. I don't mind it if he makes it past Las Vegas here. That would be acceptable, and I also think Chicago's definitely a team who could be looking to move up for whatever reason, maybe trying to move up for Abdul Carter, or could move down. They have the resources to move up, and depending on who's here at pick 10, it might make sense for them to just move back a little bit based on their needs as well. So I'll try to explore both of those scenarios, not exploring either one of them in this draft, but am exploring something I haven't done yet, which is Ashton Jeanty to Chicago, which is very popular right now, but it took me a little while to get there. I'm there now. Pick 11, the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of routes that we could go. Offensive line definitely still needs some help. Defensive line really needs a lot of help as well. Defense in general could use some help. I don't think it's as dire as people think. All the guys who left were names, but they're aging names who really haven't contributed to this defense. And San Francisco has added people that I like over recent years. They just haven't had enough draft picks to... they're going to have to make up for it a little bit this offseason. Jihad Campbell, I like a lot to them as well. A lot of routes that we could go, but at the end of the day, you can never go wrong by taking the best player available, and it's very possible they think that Tyler Warren's the best player available, and I think that this works out for a lot of reasons nicely. You get extra blocking to help protect this investment that you're probably about to make at your quarterback position. You get your future after George Kittle, which is very important. I think something that they've tried to do in the later rounds over recent years and try and draft and develop guys who I just haven't turned out. In some cases, definitely haven't turned out, not even with the team anymore. So I think that Tyler Warren is a really nice addition, and this is the kind of staff that could really do a lot with having, in the meantime, both George Kittle and Tyler Warren. Would be a lot of fun for them to work with. So best player available, kind of the pick here, even though there are greater needs. That's the logic, the idea of why San Francisco would take Tyler Warren if they happen to take him. I wouldn't bet on that being the most likely scenario. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're not looking at the most likely scenario. We're looking at different types of scenarios. And the New York Giants, one, for instance, obviously that's not the most likely scenario. That's a very specific scenario, what we did with them at that trade. Pick 12, the Dallas Cowboys are up on the board. And offensive line, you can't go wrong ever. They could use some help there. We're going to go with Armand Membu there. Obviously, there are other routes that they could go as well, but that's what we're doing here. Not too much to add to that. Armand Membu might be the best, probably the best pure tackle prospect in this class, and could end up being the best, out of this class. Very easily offensive lineman. What team is this? The Miami Dolphins are up on the clock, and this is something I did with my first mock draft of the offseason, I believe, and something at that time I said, you're going to get sick of me doing this. I'm going to do it every single time. That has not been the case at all. I ended up not liking Malachi Starks as much as I thought I would. But the NFL apparently is in love with Malachi Starks. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to go this high up in the draft. He could still even fall into the second round. There are guys that I love in this draft who, and in previous drafts, who aren't first rounders. Sometimes you just love guys, but you recognize that, okay, well, there are reasons that we can't quite take them up this high in the draft. So we'll see on Malachi Starks, but, Miami sure needs help, and I think it's a lovely fit for them. I talked about that in my 1.0, I believe, of how nice of a fit that this makes sense for them, and him learning from some of the talent that they already have would be really helpful for his career. So it's a fun pick. I like it, and it's a need. That's going to bring us on to pick 14, Indianapolis Colts. We're going to go with my man, Jihad Campbell, and I think the really nice thing about him with Indianapolis, and why we're going to just look at this scenario, is that he could be kind of the brainstem of this defense. I think something that they might be missing. You look around and they've added a whole lot of talent and mostly athletic types of guys over recent years. And you need something to bring that all together to put them in the right places to succeed, an extension of the coach on the field, and that's something that I think Jihad Campbell very much can be at the next level and would bring to, very importantly, to this defense if they chose to go that route. Let's bring us on to pick 15, where things are going to get very interesting. We're going to explore a trade. You can see the phone lines are ringing. Are either of the teams that I want calling? No, but there's talent here that teams could be interested in. And first of all, New York Giants are trying to come up to prevent a team like Pittsburgh from jumping them. In terms of their offer, in terms of getting a counter and being receptive to that, they're not really interested in that. They're just going to kind of throw an offer out there if Atlanta wants to take it. Great, this is kind of what we're willing to give up for that and no more. And that would be picks 19 and 99 to come up to pick 15. The advantage for Atlanta compared to my other trade partner here is that they're only moving back 4 spots. So if you have a target here, or a couple of targets, it's more likely that they'll make it to pick 19 than they would to pick 30, which is the other team. If you're not familiar, that would be the Buffalo Bills. They're the other team that I have. They have a lot of ammo. Let me show you them. Of course, Los Angeles Chargers, they have quite a bit of ammo too. But look at that, quite a bit of ammo for them to work with and get aggressive in this draft is something that I've wanted to explore. I might have once before, if so, I kind of have forgotten about that. But let's see what their offer could look like to Atlanta. Not 46. Coming up for pick 15, they're going to offer them pick 30, 62, and 109, all of that to get to pick 15. And this is extremely enticing for Atlanta because that's a net plus 2 picks, and that's really what they're looking for the most out of moving pick 15 or 46. And of course, teams will know that they're open for trade here as well at pick 15. So the Buffalo Bills making that offer to come up here. And one thing that we like to do with these mock drafts, once again, is check out scenarios. And this is what the teams are doing in, all offseason themselves, is they're running scenarios, running mock drafts, trying to figure out if we do this, how does that end up looking? Do we like the end result, or was that too risky and is it unlikely to work out in our favor? What is our favorite, what are our favorite routes to go in order to achieve our goals in this draft? And what are some of the routes that if something happens in front of us, how do we react to that? How do we change our draft strategy at that point? And so this is something where we're just feeling this out for Atlanta. We'll see. I've never done this for them. And Atlanta, now we're going to kind of explore this and see if we like this trade back or not with Buffalo. If we get that offer on draft day, are we willing to accept it or not? We'll see. Pick 15, Buffalo came up here for Jahdae Barron. Another one of those prospects, wide range of possibilities, seems to be, he's creeping up the mock draft boards, the consensus board. A lot of times we are seeing him going top 15 with some of the experts, but not with everybody. There are people who don't like him as much as this at all. That's bring us on to pick 16, and the New York Giants are still trying to trade up. We're going to have them succeed here. I will say, I don't know exactly how this would go, that trade for Kayvon Thibodeaux and Tampa Bay. If that was announced way back at pick 3, then, Pittsburgh would be on alert, would know if we want Jaxson Dart, we're probably going to have to jump pick 19 in order to make that happen. And that's why New York Giants are preemptively also trying to move up here. But if the Giants and Tampa Bay are able to put something in place where the trade is happening but it's not going to be announced until pick 19, I don't know how that would work. The other teams are not going to find out about it until pick 19, behind the scenes, whatever the case may be. If you can keep that behind wraps, then New York, you don't really have much of an incentive to come up here because you're going to surprise Pittsburgh at pick 19 and get your man. So just something that I don't know exactly how that would work behind the scenes on draft day, but we executed at that moment to secure it here so that way they couldn't back out on us or anything like that. But, I don't know that I've ever really seen a trade happen like that either on draft day, but you have to assume these teams have things in place quite often where if A and B doesn't happen, then C, we're down. We're going to trade with you. Anyways, with this pick, it's going to be the New York Giants coming up. They're going to trade, instead of 99, it's going to be 105 here, one spot lower. We're able to get away with it. Arizona could use a little bit of draft capital, so it works for them as well. We're going to offer that trade. Also, Arizona, looking at the board, there's more than 2 or 3 targets that they have that they would be very happy with. So moving back, getting a little bit of a capital is not going to hurt our feelings about the player that we get here at pick 19 at all at this point in the draft. New York does come up, does secure Jaxson Dart, and they get Abdul Carter Jaxson Dart, and goodbye to Kayvon Thibodeaux. That's going to bring us on to pick 17 with the Bengals, something I haven't done before, but you invest all of this money on that offense, and it's not going to it's not going to be able to go if our quarterback gets injured. So let's protect Joe Burrow, make sure that he doesn't get injured. We'll invest everything else in on this defense, which needs a lot of help. But first step, protect our quarterback could be the thought here at pick 17 if a guy like Kelvin Banks or somebody else that they like is available there. Pick 18, Seattle Seahawks probably would have been happy with Kelvin Banks there. I think quite a bit happy with that pick, but it's not there. But you know what? Will Johnson is here. I do think that there is a need at that second quarterback position in Seattle. Also ensuring yourself for the potential Tyreek Woolen asking for too much, leaving, etc. type of situation there. So Will Johnson brings some nice leadership into that secondary as well. Pick 19, Arizona. We just moved back with them. We're going to go with Walter Nolan here. I do think that they want to get more disruptive on that front defensive line. Walter Nolan has all of the potential to be the best disruptor of this class, really, ultimately. Potentially, he's another one of those guys who could go anywhere from like pick 11 all the way to falling out of the first round. That's possible for Walter Nolan. I will say, I said pick 11 specifically because there are rumors out there that San Francisco has the hots for Walter Nolan. I really would take that with a big grain of salt, though, if you hear those, because San Francisco is like probably the best team in the league in terms of their beat writers have no freaking clue what's going on in the building. Like, nobody knows what they're talking about in the building there in San Francisco, so I would be a little bit weary about some sort of leak of them being hot on somebody. But you never know. You never know. So anyways, Walter Nolan, character issues could help him to slide, as well as the fact that it is a bit of a bet on potential. However, also, he's a really good run stuffer. Now, would Arizona want to go with that route, or would they want to go with a better immediate penetrating guy like Derek Harmon, because they do want to add pass rush to this defense? He would make a lot of sense for them as well there at pick 19. Pick 20, Denver Broncos are on the board. We're going to go with an oldie but a goodie. I don't think I need to explain this too much. You don't want a C.J. Stroud-esque second year here in Denver. We want Bo Nix to progress further, and what better than to get him some quarterback-friendly weaponry. And this also, of course, we've got an aging wide receiver, not room, but we have an aging wide receiver 1 that we might want to make up for in the future, shortly in the future. That's going to bring us on to pick 21 with Pittsburgh. Maybe they had Jaxson Dart in mind. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. We'll never know unless they draft him, of course. But they are open to trading back here. Look at the board, look at their assets. They could use a little bit more if the right offer comes in. And interestingly enough, oh, look at that. The computer knows what I want. Atlanta Falcons, it was like a best case scenario for them, getting back to pick 30, getting another high draft, valued prospect here and all that. And they're going to take those new just acquired, and they're going to flip those to Pittsburgh for pick 21 and 83. So 109 here, doing some cleanup work after the trade here from pick 30 to up to 29, up to 21, 62, back to 83, 109, cleaning that up, making this work. And Atlanta's coming up to get a guy who they see maybe falling a little bit, guy who they would have been happy to take at pick 15, but you're even more excited to get him here at pick 21 because there are some off-field concerns. I don't know how great they are or not, but it feels all the better to have acquired, gotten better within our cap room, and also been able to get Mike Green. So I really like that trade for Atlanta, that trade back and back and then back up for them. I thought that was fun. Pick 22 is going to be another oldie but goodie. Kenneth Grant. Of course, there's a lot of ways that the Chargers could go here that would make plenty of sense, not short of Colston Loveland, who just popped up there at the bottom, but I really think that this defensive line is going to be something that they're going to be focusing on in the draft with several picks. They need help there in all ways along that defensive line. Pick 23, the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to save you from a longer speech that I have about my accuracy with the Green Bay Packers. I'm from Green Bay. They are my team. I'm most familiar with them, and they're also part of the reason why I ended up creating a channel and wanting to cover the draft, more so wanting to cover the draft publicly, and that's because back in the 2022 draft, I had them taking Devontae Wyatt and a linebacker with their first 2 picks, and then trading up into the second round, earlier portion of the second round to get Christian Watson, and a little bit later on, actually probably with my next pick in that draft, taking Zach Tom. So that draft went exactly like that for those picks. Nailed that. 2023 draft was everybody in the world could predict some of that stuff. And then 2024 draft, I nailed the Jordan Morgan, Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bullard, and running back in third. Nailed all that. So I've been on top of this. All that to say, this season, I'm not so sure about this, but I do think step one, given the board, given what we did with a crowded interior offensive line now as well, like a guy like Gray Zabel, I'm not so sure that, initially, the reason I fell in love with Gray Zabel and was ahead of the crowd on him before Senior Bowl practices was that I thought he'd be a great center for Green Bay Packers. I don't know in the building if they still think that they need to bring in some center potential help or if they think that they have it covered with the guys that they have. They very well might think that. So I'm going to stick away from that. First move is going to be trading back from this spot in order to execute our plan, what I think might be the Green Bay Packers plan. So we're going to start that out by moving back. Obviously, we need a trade partner who's willing to come up, and I think that the New England Patriots actually have some nice weaponry, and they're going to offer us pick 38 and 69, giggity, to come up here to pick 23, and we will accept that, feeling pretty good about our target, or at least one of them still being available when we get to that point in the draft. And the New England Patriots coming up here to get one of these more premier offensive linemen, whichever one it may be that they want to add. I can't say for sure who that would be. I am nervous about the injury to Josh Simmons, so I'm going to go Gray Zabel here for New England. I think they still need a center prospect, center help, as long as everything else really still. But I think that's a nice addition there. Maybe they would prefer somebody else. The main idea is them coming up here to get help along that offensive line. And, in part getting ahead of Houston here would be part of that goal, as well as just jumping up because not really anticipating that there's a high likelihood that they'll drop to us in the second round, some of these offensive linemen. Pick 24, the Vikings, we know from their draft capital, they're probably going to be looking to trade out of this 24 spot if possible, and that's what I'm going to be having them do yet again here. It's going to be Kansas City once again hopping up for purposes of the offensive line. You're going to offer pick 95 and 31 to come up here to 24. So maybe they feel comfortable with what they've done this offseason. Maybe not. I don't know. In this situation, they're going to see an opportunity to help to strengthen it, make sure that things go okay and don't go awry. So Josh Simmons is going to be that pick. I think a little bit risky with the injury and everything. I don't like him this high personally myself, but I also don't have access to his medical stuff to really know for sure what I'm talking about with that. I mean, I know what I'm talking about a little bit, but I don't know fully what I'm talking about. I know enough to know that I'd be nervous about it, regardless of how the medicals turn out. Pick 25, Houston Texans are on the board, and, these teams just jumped ahead of them. A couple offensive linemen probably thought, Houston's going to be so upset. They're going to be on tilt. No, they're not. They're going to be very happy to add Derek Harmon to this front seven, add some more disruption there. I think that'd be a very, very nice fit and an area where they do still have some need. Pick 26, Los Angeles Rams. Look, we're going to see some cornerbacks flying off more so than normal at the end of this round, and I really like that. I think that's a little fun scenario here to pick, but each of these cornerback picks, it's really a pick your flavor. I don't know for sure what they would prefer. I'm taking Maxwell Harrison for the Los Angeles Rams because I think that he's the best pure zone guy, and they run a lot of zone, but maybe they want to run more man coverage. Maybe they'd prefer bringing in an Azaria Thomas in order to help fulfill that goal. I don't know what their goals are, but based on historically how they run their defense, Max Harrison should be a really nice fit there if they like him at pick 26. 27, we're going to follow suit. look, we could be going wide receiver, Matt Gold available. And I could see something like this happening. Now, Savon Ravel, ACL tear, for the most part, I'm told that players return to their previous playing level from ACL tears these days. So taking that information, maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable about Savon Ravel than some of these other guys who have these injury problems, so much so that maybe I feel comfortable taking him this high. I don't know for sure, but I do know that he wore purple in college, and he's going to continue to wear purple in Baltimore, and he loved the symmetry. Now, but I do think what could draw them to Savon Ravel would just be that he could bring some real attitude, hard hitting back to Baltimore. That's something that you want in this division historically, and he feels just like an AFC North kind of guy. I know recently in a video I called the AFC East. I didn't mean to. That just fell out of my mouth and I didn't catch myself. Pick 28. We're going to go Matthew Golden here. Lots of different routes that we could go here, obviously, but also we don't want our quarterback to have a meltdown yet again. So let's get him one more weapon in this offense just to make sure that he feels comfortable no matter what the situation, to make sure defenses just can't cover us. It's already a really good offense, but obviously you saw it in the playoffs. It is possible to shut down, so let's make it all the harder to do that. I think Matthew Golden's a really nice fit in this receiving room. Falls somewhere between what Amon-Ra St. Brown can do in the short and intermediate in terms of Matthew Golden's ability to be quarterback friendly and get wide open, as well as being a deep threat. Even if he's not a 4.29 speed guy, he's still a deep threat. Like Jameson Williams. So he gives you a little bit of both to be that third guy on the field that where is he going to go? We can't really focus in defensively on any one thing now. There's weapons everywhere. That's not even including your tight end and your running back situation. So you're going to bring us on to the Washington Commanders at pick 29. Given the board, I'm going to go Donovan as a rocket for them. This is where about I think that he should be getting taken. I really think that they need help there, so I like that pick quite a bit. Pittsburgh now on the clock after they had traded back, and I'm going to have them going Michael Williams and stop right now, whatever you're typing, Pittsburgh fan, and saying there's no way that they're going to go defensive line. That's like our strongest point, whatever. There is a way because your head coach, Mike Tomlin, has had dinner with Michael Williams during the pro day when they were there for that situation. So you don't go have dinner with these prospects for no reason. You do it because you're interested in them. Are they interested in him at 21? Are they interested in him if they trade back and then get him at 30? Are they interested in him if he falls to them in the second round only? I couldn't tell you that. Maybe they're not interested in him at all after having dinner with him, but we don't know how well that dinner may or may not have gone. What we do know is they have shown interest in Michael Williams, and this has been a sneaky pick for me for Pittsburgh is something along that defensive line. There's still a little bit of room there and some future, you got to look. These teams are not just looking at this year. They're looking in the short term, intermediate, and the long term, and you have to remember that, especially with the draft. That's when you're doing your long-term types of planning. That brings us on to pick 31. We're going to see the continuation of the cornerbacks getting taken quickly because, once again, part of the reason you could see these cornerback runs is several of these teams do have a need in the cornerback room, and the likelihood of them making it towards the back third of the second round really isn't that high, especially when you already see a couple of them, the run on them has started. So Minnesota not going to play with fire. Going to go Trey Amos. This is a defense that I think wants to play a little bit more man coverage compared to like Los Angeles Rams. I don't know exactly what they want to do, but I'm pretty sure Minnesota would like to run more man. They just haven't had the personnel to be able to do that. Trey Amos can run man coverage. He can also run zone. So he is scheme agnostic, would be a really nice fit in there as they're transitioning potentially to try to get to be a little bit more man coverage, just in circumstances where they want to run it at the very least. They've had to, they haven't had the best secondary. So Trey Amos come in, really high floor guy, also comes with a good ceiling though as well. And so you like that, kind of immediately improves your room and comes with that extra oomph. Pick 32 is going to be up to Philadelphia here, and I looked at the board, and I'm like, I could take this guy, I could take that guy, I could take this guy, I could take that guy. I like a lot of options here, so much so that I'm willing to move back probably, because there's enough options here that I feel comfortable doing that and still getting one of these guys that I really like, still having somebody fall to me. And the Philadelphia Eagles are the king of teams, players falling to them. Now, you could take a guy here and steal like Colston Loveland and say, well, he already fell to them. Why move back any more? And I've done that plenty. So we're just going to do something different here with Philadelphia. We're going to have them trading with, it's going to be Chicago that's going to be coming up. And we'll say who they're coming up for in just a little bit. But it's going to be one of these fun situations where Chicago calls Philadelphia for pick 32. They give them an offer, and Philadelphia's like, seizes this opportunity to once again get into another area of the draft, pick 72 there. This is kind of a counter trade, and so a swap pick, and then they're going to give 134 to clean this up, because in order to get to pick 72, they got to give up a little bit more here. So that ends up being the goal. It's kind of two teams both making a trade and then cleaning up the dirt here. Is the reason that Philadelphia would want to get towards pick 72 in this draft is that I do think there's going to be a backlog of talent, a lot of guys who could have gone, would have been comfortable taking them in the 50s and the high 40s, that are still going to be getting taken off of the board at 72, still going to be available for your team. Once again, a backlog of talent that gets pushed out just because there is a backlog of talent in this class around that second to third round area. And Philadelphia preemptively getting themselves in position for that, taking advantage of this opportunity. And so we'll see how that turns out for them when they come up on the clock again. But we are going to go into the second round after this pick to get to that. And that will cover Tampa Bay, Green Bay as well, who have not taken a draft pick yet. Chicago Bears came up here. They could have been getting offers in terms of Philadelphia here for Omarion Hampton, somebody trying to get ahead of Cleveland. For, of course, tight end Colston Loveland would make plenty of sense here for a team. And the end of the day, though, saw James Pierce still sitting here, saw Chicago with all of the draft capital that they do have, and them getting a little bit aggressive here would make plenty of sense if James Pierce is still available and they're able to move up. So I liked that for them. James Pierce to Chicago. Don't think we need to explain that too much. Brings the juice that they need along that defensive front still. And at pick 33, we are going to go Omarion Hampton to Cleveland. We're going to talk about these picks, these second round picks, but you'll get them anyway. So Omarion Hampton to Cleveland, and then at pick 34, Tampa Bay's first pick of this draft is going to be an interesting one. I think, defense is going to be mostly the focus of this draft. They already got an edge rusher in Kayvon Thibodeaux, so we can kind of look past that a little bit. And there are some linebackers and stuff that we like, but we do have another pick coming up in not too long where some of these other players that we're looking at still might be available. I'd say, defensive back is really tempting, but this is going to be similar to the Tyler Warren pick for San Francisco in the fact of us saying, you know what? This is our best player available. We would have taken this guy back at pick 19. Maybe we would have liked somebody else more than him at pick 19, but here at pick 34, he's at the top of our board, and that's going to be Colston Loveland to Tampa Bay. A lot of fun reasons for this to make sense. One of them being, Chris Godwin coming off of injury. Colston Loveland's a guy who you can play in your slot 50 to 60% of the time, and so he could be your future proofing in the short term, really, and in the long term, in terms of helping out to make up for any shortcomings of Chris Godwin in the short term, and the future that will be at some point here without Chris Godwin. You're insulating yourself a little bit more, and in the meantime, he still can be a very, very good weapon for you in the receiving room in general as a receiving tight end. You don't want to put him in line too much. Pick 35, we are going to go with Luther Burden here to Tennessee. Really fun pick here for Jacksonville, I think. Nick Manwari filling a need and really bringing some juice to that defense. Much needed. Brings us to pick 37 for Las Vegas. And this is going to go well for the Green Bay Packers. Their primary choice here is Jaden Higgins. This is they moved back hoping that they would get Jaden Higgins here, but they also figured that if things didn't go to plan, they were kind of okay with it, because I think that the Green Bay Packers are one of the teams who will love Jack Besh. They might not be very high on Alec Iomanner, just like they might not be high on Trey Harris and or Jaden Higgins, but I'm assuming that maybe in the second round, like one of these four is all going to be okay for them. They need to add that X receiver here. So here, they're able to move back, still able to make it happen. Personally, I would be okay with Jaden Higgins getting drafted all the way up at pick 23. But I think the Packers would probably feel much more comfortable at least trading back a little ways from that pick. So this works out for them. It's a bit of a risk. I mean, look at, there's plenty of teams here who could use wide receiver. and not all of them went wide receiver. This was a big jump back. It worked out. I didn't force it to work out. The only one where I kind of did was here. Personally, I like Jaden Higgins more than Trey Hayers, but I have them both neck and neck with each other. I like them both a lot here. Late first, early second. Bring the Philadelphia Eagles onto the clock next, and we are going to have a lot of fun with this pick here for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's going to be Benjamin Morrison. So back in the 1970s, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now coming into the 2020s, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to create what I am calling the Iron Dome. So if you're not familiar, the Iron Dome is a missile defense system against aerial attacks. And so in this situation, of course, against opponent's aerial attack, you're going to put Benjamin Morrison on one side, you got Kayvon Mitchell on the other side, both of them sticky in coverage, going to be able to sit in the hip pocket of the guys that they're defending, and then that leaves Sidney Brown kind of wide open with guys like Reed Blankenship, Deshaun Cooper doing similar things, better things themselves, as well as once again allowing then Sidney Brown to do what he does really well, which is just going to be to kind of play a little bit free and maybe intercept the ball a few times. And that's, the Iron Dome's all about intercepting those incoming missiles. So I really like, obviously I like that terminology, Iron Dome. I'm going to take, let's do it. Let's make that happen and become the thing. If, of course, we get both Kayvon Mitchell and Benjamin Morrison here on the outsides of this cornerback room. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you very, very much for tuning on in. About the same length as the other videos. Hopefully the sound was good.